everyone. This is your host, alexbalgood, and this is Leap of Health. And I'm super excited to have Kate Boyle today. We're going to be talking about menopause and perimenopause. We're going to explain what's all that about. And she is a nutritionist and a certified Pilates instructor. So thank you for joining us today from all the way from Australia.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to dive into these topics today with you.
Yes, and before we get into the whole explanation of menopause and what's all that about, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're also a dancer, so tell us how you got to be a practitioner now.
Sure. So when I was 16, I actually tore the meniscus in my knee and, had a bit of a crisis point at that time because I was like every dancer, wanting to be a dancer and join a company and talked to a lot of people and found out that yes, I could still, I had a scholarship for full-time dance course and, could make it to a company, but I probably would never ever be principal. I'd be put in the back because, risk of injury will only increase as I got older. So I kind of hit a turning point and went, well, that doesn't really sound like an awesome career, and it's short-lived as it is anyway. So that's how I sort of pivoted and went into nutrition and actually went off to university and studied nutrition and food science in the hope that I could help other young athletes with their nutrition. And on that journey while I was at uni, still teaching dancing and, talking to my dancer friends in the Pilates course, this was like late 90s, early 2000s. We'd done Pilates, but the Pilates course was sort of coming through. A lot of dancers were gravitating to doing the course. And my girlfriend said, go off and do the Pilates course. You would be fantastic. You teach dance, you've got a movement background. And so at that time, not just the meniscus in my knee that I'd torn, I had torn the ligaments in my ankle. I'd torn my hamstring. I had SIJ pain. I had lower back pain. And I thought, okay, we'll go off and do this course. And I ended up rehabbing my own body and all my injuries through Pilates. And so then thought, this is so amazing. Started teaching others, seeing how it could help not just back pain, but, get people moving again when they hadn't been moving for a while and help their pain, and sort of bridged nutrition and movement together, working at different studios around Australia. And then I went over to Europe to teach for a year and then came back and opened my own studio in 2009. And so I've been teaching Pilates and working with clients in the nutrition field ever since.
That's awesome. I mean, I think I always talk about the whole system. It's not just nutrition, it's not just movement. It's a lot of many things that can be combined for us to have optimal health. And in this case, movement and nutrition, they're so important in life. We have to eat all the time, and we hope to be moving for a long time too.
Yeah, ideally. And like you said, learning, over the years, delving into nutrition and movement, working with so many different people that might have autoimmune conditions or, stressful things happening in their lives, we start to learn how important sleep is, how important managing our stress is, how, inflammation in the body can contribute to pain or how we're feeling and moving. So, as you said, creating that sort of holistic approach to health is so important. And I think, we always start with one thing. So we might start changing our diet. But once we start that one thing, it gives us some motivation to then look at those other things. And I think there's so many more practitioners out there that are looking at health holistically that it is so much better for everybody.
Yeah, it kind of connects the dots to everything that we need to do and have for our optimal health. So I think it's just amazing that more and more practitioners do that instead of just staying in one little thing. They kind of like expand a little bit, learn more, partner up with other practitioners, and that way the patients or the clients have a lot more to benefit from. So that's always so cool.
Yeah, and I mean, you just in the practice in the studio, I will refer clients off to maybe they need to see an osteopath or a massage therapist, or maybe it is a psychologist. Maybe they've gone through some trauma and so they've got pain in their body and it's being held in that body because they are needing to process that trauma. So I think working with other practitioners, if you're in the field, is really important as well.
Yeah, for sure. And let's go dive into menopause. I think people just are like, okay, I have menopause now. And what is it? And I think it's there's something else before menopause, I believe, that we were trying to also dive into. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a bit confused myself with this. And it was perimenopause.
Menopause, yeah. So perimenopause is the stage in a woman's life. It's usually between the ages of around about anywhere between 35 and 45, we'll start to see symptoms. And that's usually when our ovulation starts to change. So we may experience, a slightly heavier period. We may find that our periods are starting to stretch out. So say you're used to having, a 28-day cycle, you might start having a 40 or a 50-day cycle, or it might shorten and it actually might become a 15-day cycle and then stretch out to a 50-day cycle. So this is when the hormones start changing. So the levels of our estrogen and progesterone start to change, and that starts to affect our ovulation. And perimenopause could be a couple of years, it could be up to 10 years. It really is very individual on the woman that we're working with, but you will start to feel those changes in your ovulation, but then you might also start to feel, the things that we start to notice, like hot flashes or, cramping or night sweats. These might start to come in as our hormones are changing. After that, once we've gone one full year without having a period, that's when we say we've hit menopause. Now,
Hmm.
menopause itself is actually only one day. That's that one day where we've hit that full year of not having a period, and then it's actually postmenopause. But everyone just refers to it as being in menopause, which is totally fine. But again, that age range is usually from, anywhere between sort of 45 and 55, a woman may enter menopause. And then again, they may experience different symptoms of menopause, like the hot flashes and the night sweats, for a number of years. Some people experience it, quite severely, and other people, they might find that they don't have a lot of, changes at all. But that's when we sort of find out that our hormones have dropped, our estrogen, our progesterone have started to drop. And, this is our body just moving into that sort of next stage of life.
Hmm. How does nutrition connects with those two stitches? Because I know I've heard one lady I talked to not too long ago. She was like, "Yes, I was having gut problems, and I was diagnosed with menopause at I think it was like early 20s." And I was like, "What? How like so explain us a little bit on how these situations happen and why it's so important nutrition at those stages."
Sure. So just to know that perimenopause and menopause are natural stages in life. They should happen. But the symptoms that come with them, which, can range from, hot flashes right through to, stomach upsets and all the rest of it, and even joint pain for some women, is very individual. But we can actually manage those symptoms better through our movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress. So when it comes to nutrition, we really want to be fueling our body with, a whole foods diet. So lots of fruits and veggies and nuts and seeds and grains and good protein sources like fish and meat and eggs, depending if you're, vegetarian or vegan. So really going back to that whole foods diet and cutting out things like the processed foods that are high in not just processed and added sugars, but all the chemicals and toxins that they add into food. Those types of ingredients are going to contribute to poor gut health, inflammation in the body. And when our body is in that state, then that's when we're going to experience more of these symptoms that come through in perimenopause and menopause. So dialing in your diet is super important. Bumping up your fiber intake. So, making sure that you're pooping every day, okay, to get the detoxification processes happening. And then, drinking lots of water. Hydration is really important. And then, really monitoring your coffee intake and your alcohol intake. So, especially as we start to enter perimenopause and we're getting fluctuations in hormones, things like alcohol and caffeine can cause havoc. And again, might not be caffeine for everybody, but a process of elimination, if you are having some of these symptoms coming through, it's definitely something to look at.
Okay. So once we get into that stage, it's usually good to see what we're eating, if we're moving and things like that to actually minimize so it's not like we're gonna skip menopause or anything like that. It's just
No.
right, right. So it's just minimize all the aches and symptoms that we might have at that point, at that stage of life.
Ex Exactly. So, when it comes to movement wise, as we age, our bone density and our muscle mass decreases. So that's why women are more at risk of osteoporosis, which is the loss of bone loss, and then osteopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass. So we really want to start to build up our strength as we age. So adding in more protein. So that's another sort of area that women tend to not sort of had enough protein in their diet. So really looking at having adequate sources of protein at your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So our great, as I said before, protein sources, nuts and seeds and beans if you're sort of vegan, going into, meat and fish and eggs as well. So really adding those in, yogurts, cheese, adding these foods in at all 3 meals throughout the day to really bump up that protein intake is going to help our bone and our muscle mass. And then combining that with our resistance or our strength training. So really looking to start to add in, weights or body weight workouts or working with resistance bands and upping those weights as much as we can, in a safe manner, looking at, adding in that resistance work sort of 2 to 3 times a week.
Why is this so important? Because I feel like, especially women, I think men still, go to the gym and try to lift as much as they can because that's kind of like in their nature. But a lot of women tends to be like, I'm just gonna do cardio and they'll do it. I feel good. But tell us why it's so important to actually do lift weights, do resistance training and things like that, and and maybe minimize on the cardio and do a little bit more of the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think, for women, there has been that message in the media that you want to be skinny, you want to have a good looking body as such, and cardio will make you sweat and you will lose weight. So I think that's sort of a natural thing that women tend to think about. But as we age, our bodies get more insulin resistant. So insulin's our hormone that helps to manage our blood sugar levels. And we also get that drop in muscle mass and bone mass. So if we're not lifting heavier and building up that bone and muscle mass, we're going to lose that muscle mass and we're going to be at an increased risk of falls. So the stats of falls, over the age of sort of 65, it's the highest rate of hospitalization for people over 65. And then the chances there's an increased risk of, further injuries, but then also death after falls. It's extremely high. So if we want to minimize that risk, especially as we age and our balance decreases, so another thing to be working on, but also just making sure that we're strong and we're keeping our hormones in check, then adding in that resistance training is going to help reduce those symptoms that come through in perimenopause and menopause as well.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, lifting will help with the bone density and to create more muscle, which is what you want. If you're getting
Yes.
older, it's kind of like we've been so trained to be like, no, no, you kind of like do the least. The older you are, the less you do. But it almost has to be like the other way around. The older you are, the more lifting, the more training, maybe yes, cardio, but focus on building muscles and bone density because that's what's gonna keep you well the older you get.
Yeah. Well, you don't get away with as much as you age. When you're younger, you've naturally got those high hormones, so it's easier to maintain that muscle mass. But as you age and those hormones are decreasing, you can't get away with, not working out. You'll lose your strength much more quickly, and then you'll be at high risk of injuries as well. So, the research that had come through, there's a high correlation with women in menopause suffering from shoulder injuries. And the research shows that there's a direct correlation between menopause and shoulder injuries because the hormones are changing. So the lubrication in our joint isn't as good. We're not generally working out and building muscle mass. We're actually losing muscle and bone mass. So that increases our risk of developing a shoulder injury. And I don't know about you, but I know, for women, we have wider hips, and we don't have as much upper body strength. So when it comes to working our upper body is hard. So, most of us avoid working out the upper body and doing legs because that feels so much easier. And then again, we lose that muscle mass and we're at the risk of developing an injury.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also, too, I think nowadays everybody tries to, keep their butts and their legs and all these things. So they do a lot of lower body training or exercise. But yeah, we must balance. You should definitely do the upper body because it's as important as the legs too.
Exactly. And especially if you think of everyday life, just, reaching up to the cupboard, hanging out the washing, we are doing things over our head all the time, maybe not with a lot of load, but that's when you go to grab and say you have to pull something and you do a shoulder injury because we're not used to doing loaded movements over our head unless we're starting to add that in our strength workouts.
Yeah, just it reminded me of my mom. So every time she travels, she has that carry on. And she's like, I don't want to, keep taking my carry on because it's so hard to lift it up
But
above the shoulders. And I'm like, you're very strong. And she's like, no. And I'm like, see, training. We need training right in the shoulders. But yeah,
that's it.
yeah, simple things like that. Just, lift. We think we're okay until we do something that you're like, oh, how can I get, put this luggage? And it's a small bag. My mom carries a small bag, over the head. So it's just those things to think about. The things that we do every day, will you be able to add 5 pounds or 3 pounds? And if the answer is no, it's probably time to do some upper body work.
Yeah, and we've got slings in our body the way that our fascial systems work. There's diagonal slings that work from the shoulder right across to the opposite hip. But then, we've got lateral slings from one shoulder to the same hip traveling down the body. So, working with those slings is important for building that overall strength and not just being strong in one area as well.
Hmm. It's about balance. You cannot do leg days, all every week. You gotta do upper body and try to find a balance. You don't want to be that like those guys that just do the lower part and then they have like big upper body and then a small super skinny legs, like, so we don't want to do that. We actually want to have some sort of balance. And also with the exercise that we put, we want to do weights, we want to do cardio and all these things to keep going strong for sure.
Yeah. And I think a lot of women get scared when it comes to weights because they think if they start lifting, they're going to get really big. But realistically, you are not. You are just going to build strength and tone, but you are not going to get those big muscles, and really change the way you look, but you are going to change the way you feel and move and your susceptibility to injury by starting to add those weights in.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's a great point you make. We're not gonna look like, Sylvester Stallone at all, like never. Like all these men that looks really big, they either take something or they're in the gym like for hours. It's like their job. They're like for hours lifting weights. And obviously, who has time to do that? No one has time to do that. If you just want to go do a small workout, but effective, that it's gonna prevent you from a lot of injuries.
Exactly. And generally, start small. So that's the other thing. A lot of people think, oh, I have to lift a heavy weight straight away. No, start with half a kilo, start with 1 kilo, start with where it feels comfortable. And then once, you can really start to build up those reps, then go up in the weight. So do it over time. And again, if you're really scared, work with somebody, seek out a trainer or, someone online if you want to do an online program, but get some guidance and some help so that you feel confident in what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's so many free tools out there that, you just Google something and you'll find some sort of class or some sort of video or something that can actually help you if you're scared too. And and as you said, you don't have to start with those Olympic weights that, you see on videos and little kids are doing now and all those things. Nobody really needs that. Just get a few pounds to work out and then you'll be good.
Yeah. And you're never too old because that's the other thing. I work with a lot of women and they're like, oh, but I'm 60. And I'm like, yes, but that's okay. We can start now and then start building and, really build again that muscle mass. And I work with a lot of women that may have been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia. And we can really work on that bone, increasing that bone mass, but we need to start to add in that weighted work. And another thing they can start doing is there's something that's called rucking, where you can put weight in a backpack and go for a walk with weight in your backpack. And that's a really simple way that, sort of overcomes those barriers. You don't have to go somewhere. You don't have to buy heavy weights. You can just grab a few big water bottles, stick them in your backpack. And when you go on your regular walk or you walk for the dog with the dog, you can put that backpack on and you're adding in extra weight whilst you're doing your walking. So you're adding in that sort of combo of the cardio and the resistance training together. So that can be another option, especially for women that may be starting to get a bit older and scared of lifting weights. That's another option that we can start to add in that resistance training as well.
That's great. I never thought about that. That's super simple, easy. Anybody can do it. We all, for the most part, have backpacks. So
Yeah,
that's
that's it.
that's a great idea. Yeah. No, that's really good. Um, so going back to the question, why is it woman now? Because you talk about there's a healthy range of people getting menopause, which is like 45. Why do we have all these people that are having all these symptoms when they're younger?
So this is where diet and lifestyle starts to come in, and it's usually quite a layered effect. So, we're talking about food before and there being toxins and chemicals in our foods. Well, there's also toxins and chemicals around us all the time, whether or not it's our household cleaning products or our skincare and makeup products, or the shampoo that you're using or the flame retardant that's been sprayed on your furniture. There is these chemicals and a lot of them are known as obesogens. So what they do is they interfere with our estrogen receptors and they sort of block or can affect our hormone production, which then exacerbate a lot of the symptoms that come through in perimenopause and menopause. And if you're sort of before the age of perimenopause, say you're in your 20s and you're just having your regular monthly period, you may experience more cramping or bloating or period pain or breast tenderness. So when estrogen and progesterone levels get out of whack, this is a way that those symptoms are going to come through. So a big one of them is the chemicals. So the more that we can strip these out of our diets, out of our, household products and the beauty products that we use, the better we're going to be. So that's always a good step. And, just flipping over the back of the packet, having a look, see what ingredients are in. There's some great apps out there too, because a lot of the ingredients you can't even pronounce. The benzoylethene 6, and you're like, I don't even know what that is. Well, if you don't know what that is, you probably shouldn't be putting it into your body, but you can get these apps. One that we used a lot here in Australia is called Chemical Maze, and you can put in the name or the number and it'll show up and tell you whether or not it's safe to be ingesting or putting on your body. So that can be just a really helpful place to start. And I think, just doing it one step at a time. So, maybe you're looking at the food you're eating. And then once you sort of clean up that stuff, maybe look at your beauty products, because a lot of people go, oh, it's super expensive to change everything over, but just do it one product at a time. So that's one of the things that sort of add to it. Then we've got our sleep. So many people are not prioritizing sleep. We've always heard the, I'll sleep when I'm dead sort of thing, and, party right now, and I've got to work hard and hustle. And so sleep sort of falls to the wayside. But sleep is when we're doing all our resting, repairing, and regenerating of cells. So again, if we're not getting that time to rest and repair, then our hormones are going to most probably start to fall out of sync, and that can contribute to these symptoms as well. And then on top of that, we've got stress, and that can be one of the biggest ones that we don't think about, because everyone's like, oh, I'm fine. I can handle everything. But internally, you are juggling a lot, and it might turn up as gut issues. It might turn up as you can't fall asleep in the evening. You might just be moody and irritable more often. So really managing our stress, and, everybody says, oh, but I can't meditate, or, we think if we're going to lower stress levels, we've got to meditate. But even if it's just getting outside during the day, spending some time, in the sunshine, seeing some trees and nature, carving some time throughout our day just to take some time out. It might be to read a book, to call a friend and have that connection, meet up with a friend for a walk. So creating space for ourselves. And then also, the more that we dial in our diet and our sleep, then the more resilient we're going to be when we do face stress, when a stressful situation comes up, or we come into contact with someone that's sick and we think, oh no, that's it, I'm going to get sick now. If we're in a healthier state, then we're going to be much more prepared to be able to handle these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that you break these things so easily, because as you said, you don't have to change all your cleaning products or all your makeup just all at once, because that will be very difficult and probably very shocking for anyone. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and expensive.
and very expensive. Yeah. So just changing little things here and there. We also have apps here too in the States, but I'm gonna check your app too. Because some of the ones here don't show all the brands. So I think also, seeing other apps anywhere else, I think it'll be very helpful. But yeah, you can definitely, and it's super easy. You can just go in your app store, look for an app that reads products or food, and it tells you how safe they are and if you should be getting them or not. And also too, gives you options. So if the hand cream that you love, it's super full of toxins, sometimes they give you options of like, oh, try this other one, it's very similar but it has less toxins. So no, nowhere to panic. There's a lot of solutions for a lot of things. And also when it comes to prices too, there's a bunch of products out there that you can try. So that's on that. And I love too that you mentioned sleeping. We do try to prioritize our party time
Mm.
and not a sleeping time. But I think nowadays there's more and more practitioners um, that are telling us, like, hey, if you don't sleep now, probably later you might have encounter you're prompt to diabetes, high blood pressure, and all these things because you're not repairing, you're not sleeping. So I think the more we're reminded that, yeah, it's okay to party. I mean, I love to party. I'm sure you do too. I mean, everybody does. It's fun. It makes us really happy. But when you do it all the time, I think it really gets a toll on your body because you don't have that time to recoup.
Yeah. And as we were sort of saying before, as we start to hit perimenopause and menopause, we don't sort of have that buffer in our body as much anymore as what we did in our 20s. So these things become, it's that sort of, as you hit your 30s and then, beyond, and people go, oh, I just don't bounce back like I used to, after a big night out. And you don't, because you don't have the same amount of, regeneration in your cells. It doesn't happen as quickly. Your hormones have started to drop. So there's all these things that come into play, which just means we need to look after our bodies a little bit more as we start to age to still have them functioning at their best.
Yeah, because we still at age of 60, 65, or whatever that is, we still will probably want to have fun and go to a party. But if you are messing up your body all this time, by 60, you're gonna be like, cannot even walk. I cannot go to my daughter's wedding or things like that. You want to think ahead and have your body healthy and ready for everything and all situations that you might encounter when you're older.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we were sort of talking about before about adding in that resistance and strength training. People think that's going to be really taxing on the body and too much, oh, I don't have great mobility. I can't do that. There's always something that you can do. We start small, we have lighter weights, we reduce the range of motion, we start sitting in the chair with just working with the upper body. Then we add in, sitting to standing work or small squats. So there's always something you can do. It's just working with you where you're at, starting there, and then building really slowly.
Yeah. And that's awesome because a lot of people that might be listening or know someone, like grandma or mom, and they haven't really moved for a long time. And they're like, well, it's because she's old or he's old. But no, like we can all do something and they can start whatever they add, as you mentioned. Even little steps are going to make a big difference in where they are right now.
Yeah. And the thing is, as we age, we tend to start to avoid movements. So we go, oh, it's too hard to bend down. I'm going to stop doing that. A big thing with my clients is you stand up and you put your sock on and you're standing on one leg to put your sock on your other foot. And they start sitting down because their balance isn't as good, because their muscle strength isn't as good. And so one of our goals with my older clients is to be able to stand and put their sock on, which sounds simple, but as you age, these are the things that we just start going, oh, we won't do that. We'll sit down. We'll make things easier for ourselves because this is hard. But the more we do that, the more movement we lose, the more strength we lose, and then the quality of life starts to drop. So, trying to keep doing to it, within a certain realm, the things that you usually do for the rest of your life is super important.
Yeah. And, as that little exercise or thing that you make to do your clients, it's kind of hard, let me tell you. Like if you're not agile like that, I challenge everyone that's listening to us right now, not right now, but maybe later or on the weekend or whenever you have the chance, just do it to prove me wrong. Get
Yeah.
stand up and put one sock and then, stand up again and put the other one and see just to test yourself. And if you were awesome about it, then you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. You're probably exercising and stretching, doing yoga, whatever it is. That's amazing. But if you couldn't, and this little simple exercise was not simple at all, it's kind of like that time to be like, maybe those two ladies went onto something, whether you're a man or a woman, because this is about mobility. We all need it. We all would like to be 70, 80, and still, go for a walk around the neighborhood or walk with our friends or, go anywhere. You want to be mobile. So, yeah, just there you go. Little challenge for whoever is listening and see how good you do there.
Yeah, it's a really good test for everybody to try.
No, I love it. All right. And then I was gonna tell you, so going back to the menopause, does men experience something like that, or is it just women?
Unfortunately, it's really just women. So men with their cycles, they tend to have it's like a 15-minute cycle and a 24-hour cycle, which is why our world is kind of built the way it is with, work days the same every day. And, we do it every day, 5 days a week for the whole year. We don't change depending on our cycle, like with women who we have a 28 or 30-day cycle with our menstrual cycle. They really don't. So their testosterone levels, they will drop as they age, but they don't drop so significantly that they see major changes like we do in women. So as we know, once we hit perimenopause and then finally menopause, when we haven't had we're not having regular periods, we can't, get pregnant anymore and produce. Men still have testosterone and can produce forever. So they will experience drops in their testosterone as they age, which may affect sometimes, they still will see decreases in their muscle mass and strength, but definitely not to the degree of women.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's almost the same concept. Now, because you feel like you will have muscles because you're men, you're not supposed to work out or do some sort of mobility exercise. So, if you're a male and you're listening to this, you're like, women, I'm good. Nothing of that's going to happen to me. But in reality, is that you also need to keep up with your body. So, if you're working out, lifting weights, and all that, good for you. But if you're not, do that because also there's now studies on how men are having osteoporosis too because of the diets that they go through.
Yeah. And, like the natural aging process, they will lose muscle mass, they will lose bone mass. They just don't lose it to the extent that women do because they have estrogen, but they don't have the massive drop in estrogen that we experience. So for everybody as we age, it's still really important to add in that resistance training and to really dial in the diet. So men can still be diagnosed with osteoporosis, but again, women just have a much higher rate.
Mm-hmm. So just let's keep that in mind. So you're not, just this is not me. You could still have some of these things, obviously to a lower level, but let's always take care of our bodies, whether you're female or male. I think just taking care of ourselves till the end of our lives, that will be ideal.
Yeah, it's the guys don't get off scot-free. They still have to work at it as well. They just have, slightly different changes to women because we've both got different sets of hormones.
Yeah, for sure. I think you have gave us a lot of really good information for people to think about, and especially for a woman that, if you're going through menopause, this is not like the end of your life. This is just a stage that we all women will go through, and we'll just move on. The difference is how you go through this stage. Are you taking care of yourself or are you not? So the more you do it, the better you will go through this stage in life and keep on being stronger, keep on lifting weights, and keep having a good life.
Yeah. And, also say you go through menopause at, say, 55, you may live to your 95. You may have another 40 years, almost half of your life may be in that sort of menopause or post-menopause state. So, looking after our body because we are living so much longer is even more important. 100 years ago, we just weren't living as long. So they weren't experiencing menopause, for as long a period of time. So it's fantastic nowadays that we have increased longevity and there's more studies that are coming through, but there still aren't enough because, people in general just didn't live as long as what they do now.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, as you said, we still have like another half of our lives to live. Some might live it really well, and with friends, living good, eating well, exercising, and just living a full life. It's not the end of anything. If anything, it's the beginning of your half next life.
Yeah. And it's just dialing in those basics. Everyone thinks you have to do some fancy things, but it's not. It's, going back to making sure you're getting a good night's sleep, eating whole foods and cutting out those processed foods, moving your body on a daily basis and making sure you lift, and add in some resistance and managing your stress. And if you can dial those in, then you can look at supplements, and if you want to delve into HRT and things like that. But going back to those basics of what is going to make the biggest difference, and then you can start to layer on the other fancy sort of health things that you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. We have still so much more life to go. So don't think you're old. No one's old, unless you're 100, then you're old. But otherwise, you have a lot of life to go through. So make sure you eat well, you sleep well, you drink, good quality water, hang out with friends is so important, or mind, body, and soul. You have to feed them all. You have to take care of all of them in order to live a good life. So, anyways, this has been such an amazing conversation. Before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Just that, I hope people can take inspiration from this and just pick one thing to start with. So don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe today, if you're not used to moving, you're going to fill up some water bottles and, do some upper body work with the water bottles as weights. So pick one thing, do that, make it a consistent habit. And then once that feels comfortable, layer on the next thing.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for all those tips. And as we said, we challenge you to do the stock exercise. It will be so much fun if you can send us a message and let us know if that was as easy as you thought. I think that was a fun thing and a fun exercise for everyone. So hopefully you do, and if you do, let us know. If anyone wants to get in contact with you or have any questions, where can they find you?
You can find me at my website, which is mindmovementhealth.com.au, because I'm in Australia. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram just at Mind Movement Health.
Awesome. And I will put all your information in the show notes. For anyone out there, if you want to know more about my show, you can find me at alexbalgood.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. Also, remember my book is out. You can buy it on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. It's called Parents, Our Greatest Teachers. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for connecting all the way from Australia. I was super excited to have you. And for everybody, please have an amazing and blessed day.